what happens when you come late. You have to sit in the back. All right. We're starting a series today, and we're going to study biblical marriages and biblical couples. And we're going to try to learn a thing or two about everyone's favorite topic of marriage by taking a look at some examples from the Bible about marriages that did work and marriages that didn't necessarily work out so well. I say marriage, everyone gets excited. If you're single, you're excited. If you're married, you're excited as well. Marriage is a powerful topic, and it should be a powerful topic, and it's an important topic. And what I discovered about marriage is everyone kind of says the same thing. Oh, we're going to talk about marriage again? Oh, again? What time does it start? Everyone doesn't really want to talk about marriage, but you can't kind of turn your eyes away when there's like a topic about marriage. And there's nothing wrong with that. Married people will agree with me that in marriage, there's nothing that will affect your long-term satisfaction and happiness in life more than marriage. Your spouse has the power to make you the happiest man alive. And she also has the power to do the opposite of that. Okay, and same with your wife. And we know from a young age, we are trained to think about marriage and dream about marriage. I was telling you all last week that I took my kid to Disney World a couple weeks ago. And I took my daughter, all right, to, don't laugh at me, okay, a princess tea party. Me and Lizzie were at a princess tea party. And it was like 10 or 15 little princesses, all between the age of like 4 and 7. All of their mothers, and then me. I didn't know it was a mother-daughter kind of a thing, okay? I didn't realize that. So we're there, and we're dressed up as princesses, and they give them like the little teacup where they have the apple juice and the little heart-shaped peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and there's all princess and all kinds of good stuff. And then the main star comes out to give the sermon or speech or whatever she gives, okay? I just think in terms of sermons, it was Sleeping Beauty was on the schedule for this day. And Sleeping Beauty comes out, and she's asking the kids, like, how many of you is your first time in Disney? And, the kids raise their hand. And how many of you, have a princess doll at home or seen this movie? And all the kids raise their hand. And then she says, how many of you have been in love before? Ah! That was the look on my face when she said that. That was the look, how many of you been in love? Why you ask my little kid that? Why you tell my little kid about love? She's lucky I didn't take the microphone out of her hands, but that's the world that we live in. Like, they weren't doing anything wrong, okay? That's the world that we live in. From a young age, you are trained to think about one day falling in love. And one day, if you're the girl, your Prince Charming is going to come and sweep you off your feet. And from a young age, right, ladies, okay, we dream about our wedding day. We dream about what we're going to wear. And the flowers, and where the boy's going to stand, and where the girl's going to stand, and we know how many kids we want to have, and what the kids' names is going to be, and we've all done the little MASH game. Remember MASH when we were kids, okay? That's right, ladies, you do it. Now, guys, y'all shouldn't be laughing. Guys, they don't dream about their wedding day. They dream about their wedding night. And guys, how many times, we don't need to tell the ladies how many times we thought about that wedding night, and we thought about it, how many times we think about it. From a young age, marriage is on our minds. It's something that's in front of us, and we dream of that perfect marriage. Now, the problem is that many of the married people here today are still dreaming about that perfect marriage and still can't wait for Prince Charming to show up or can't wait to have that fulfillment and satisfaction. Nothing is worse to me as someone who sees a lot of marital problems than when you have a boy and a girl and they love each other and they care about each other and the pieces seem to fit in place, but there's no satisfaction. That's the worst, is that when two people love each other and have had great times together and really care about each other, but they just can't seem to make it work. What we're going to look at in this series, like I said, so we're going to look at some biblical marriages, and we're going to learn some marriage advice. The single people, this is important. The marriage people, this is important. Unless you're going to the monastery, okay, what we're talking about here is important because there's no, if you're married, marriage that can't be corrected, okay, and you'll see some areas maybe need some correction. And single people, never be too prepared for what's to come down the pipe. Our series is called Happily Ever After, and what we're going to see is it possible to really live happily ever after in marriage? I believe the answer is yes, if we just take some sound biblical advice. First couple we're going to look at today is kind of a, I don't know what the right word to say, it's kind of a twisted story about Jacob and Leah and Rachel. So right off the bat, we have an interesting marital situation because there's three parties that are involved. We have a little bit of a love triangle here, which gets dirty and messy, and it gets kind of complicated for our man Jacob. We won't read all the story because I'll assume that we understand the basics, but let me just give you a brief how we got into this love triangle that we got into. Jacob one day is out walking in the street, and Jacob had left his home because remember he had that whole situation with his brother Esau, okay? He conned his brother Esau. Now Esau's trying to kill him. So now Jacob is running for his life. He's out on the road one day, and he runs into this beautiful girl. And as soon as he sees this girl, she is knocked out, gorgeous, drop dead. Like he says, that's it. I gotta have this girl. This is the answer to all my problems. Little did he know. This is the answer to all my problems in life. I gotta marry this girl. She's everything for me. And he is flipped head over heels. This girl is his uncle's daughter. For those who can do the little math, okay? His uncle's daughter would make Rachel his, I told you it's a twisted story. I told you it's complicated. But these guys from like, you know, ancestors from the back, okay, from the back there. So this wasn't a big deal back in the time. Now, before we dig into the story, let's try to understand the psychology of Jacob here. Jacob, as we study his character in the Bible, was a very emotional character. He was very emotional, passionate kind of a guy. And now, you got to look at Jacob's background. What was Jacob's relationship with his dad? Was it a good relationship? No. He never really had the love and the approval from his dad. His dad liked the older boy, Esau. I thought Jacob was kind of a mama's boy. And Jacob was a mama's boy. And Jacob sought all his parental love from his mom. But now his mom is out of the picture as well. His brother hates his guts. So Jacob is in this emotional and lonely state where he's feeling empty, where he's feeling sad, he's feeling like life has no purpose, he's feeling like I'm all by myself. And then he sees the answer to all his problems in Rachel. He loses his mind a little bit right here, as sometimes we do. Single people. Sometimes we get into a state where we get lonely, we're out in the wilderness, where we get in that state where we feel like something's not satisfying, and we think, oh, if I just got married. Married people, will getting married solve all the single people's problems? Not even close. Man, you ain't even seen problems yet till you got married. But we think, I'm empty, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I'm aimless. If I could just achieve this, this will be the answer to all my problems. My life will be solved, the void will be filled, life will be good once I get this marriage thing solved. This is the girl who struggles to be alone and always wants a boyfriend. Even if she doesn't really care much about the boyfriend, she just needs to have someone next to her. Guys, we do the same thing. This is the married person. I'll pick on the men now. This is the married man who's got that faithful, loving wife, the good kids, whatever it is. But somehow he feels like, not satisfied at work, not satisfied, like, feels physically unattractive. His gut is out. His hair is down. So he feels like, what? I need something to pick me up. That young little lady. And he trades it for that young little lady, be it physical or emotional relationship. That's what Jacob did right here. Let's pick up the story in Genesis 29, starting in verse 16. It says, now Laban, who's Laban? Laban is Jacob's uncle, okay? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Now, without getting too much into the nitty-gritty, the Bible here says there's Leah and there's Rachel. And it says Leah had weak eyes. And it says Rachel was beautiful and had a lovely figure. It's obvious that the translators of the Bible were trying to be as polite as possible in translating this verse. Leah had weak eyes. Other translations would say delicate eyes. We don't know exactly what that is. It's believed maybe that she had some kind of deformity in her eyes or some kind of blemish, something in her face. And they were trying to be polite and saying she had weak eyes, okay? And Rachel, they were also trying to be polite, okay? Lovely in figure and beautiful is a nice way of saying she's a knockout, okay? She was like I said, she was gorgeous. And as soon as Jacob saw her, he said, man, that's my girl. I wanted to, because you know how I want to be thorough in my analysis, my presentation to you guys. So I did a study of the Hebrew words which were used to describe Leah and Rachel, and I tried to, as much as possible, show you an accurate depiction of what each of them would look like, based on intense study of the writings of the fathers and the Hebrew language to show you what they would look like. Leah looks something like this. And we all got a grandma or an aunt or something that looks like this, so I think we can relate. Now Rachel looks something like this. In case you don't know, that is my beautiful and lovely and figure, drop-dead gorgeous wife, and I just earned so many brownie points. And I plan to redeem them at the next James Bond festival, bringing my wife with me to watch all the James Bond movies. Anyway, back to the real Jacob and Rachel. Jacob sees this girl. She's gorgeous. He falls in love. The problem that we're going to see here is Jacob's attraction to Rachel was only based on physical. The guy met her, and after he met her, he said, I'm in love. She's the answer to all my problems. Don't be fooled into thinking that anything exterior will ever solve your problems. Is it bad to be attracted to your husband or your wife? Is it bad that you look for physical attraction? No, it's not bad. It's a good thing. But it's bad if that's the basis, and that's the foundation. And for Jacob, it wasn't just the basis and foundation. It was the only thing. Because as we're going to see, if you looked at it carefully, Leah was actually much more superior to Rachel as far as her character. Leah was a much, much more spiritual and of noble character person than was Rachel. He didn't see that. He could only see the beautiful, beautiful physical outside. Does this happen now? I mean, this happens now all the time. At the beginning, ladies, he's cute. At the beginning, he says a joke, no one laughs, it's cute. At the beginning, he's just quirky. After a time, he's annoying. He's immature. After a while, gentlemen, okay, the ladies who are beautiful, okay, I don't want to get myself in trouble right here, but let's just say things change, okay? Things change over time, okay? So if you're planning, I mean for others, of course, not me. I showed you, you know how I am. Nothing annoys me more and makes me want to like shake someone's head than when a girl comes to me and tells me she's met the guy. And, hey, that's great, you know, tell me about him. Oh, I met this boy. Hey, that's great, tell me about him. Oh, he's got the cutest eyes. Hey, that's great. What else? Oh, he's got a good job. Okay, what else? He comes from a good family. Good family? What? Tell me about the boy. Don't tell me about his eyes. Don't tell me about his job. Don't tell me about his family. Do you know how many losers come from good families? They're all over the place. Look around. Don't tell me that he comes from a good family. Tell me that he himself loves the Lord. Tell me that he's a person of humility, of noble character. Tell me that this is someone who, you know, when the bills aren't paid and the kid is sick and the roof is leaking, this is someone who's going to take you by the hand, lead you in front of the altar of God, and solve your problems in a spiritual manner. Not just blink his cute little eyes at the baby so the baby gets better. Jobs don't last. Cute eyes don't last. Good families, they go away. Tell me about the character of this person. And there's too many people whose marriages is not based firmly on character, and that's why you get yourselves into problems. Ladies, what you need in a man is a spiritual leader. You need a priest for your house. Someone to take you, like I said, by the hand and say, we're going to the kingdom of God. I'm leading the way. Let's go. That's what you need. And single ladies, you don't settle for anything less. Gentlemen, what you need is you need a supportive and encouraging wife. One who will stand by your side and allow you to lead and support you as you are the priest and all the stuff that I just said a little bit ago. Not one to rip you down, tear you down, and discourage you. You need someone to be the exact opposite, and don't settle for anything less. No matter how cute she may be, don't settle for anything less. Building marriage on external is like the parable that the Lord said about building the house on the sand. It may look nice for a time, but there's going to come a point in time where the big bad wolf comes and blows your house down, and it's going to crumble. That's what happened to Jacob. Jacob said, she's the most beautiful girl. I got to have her. My life will not be complete until I have this girl. When marriage is your answer to all your problems in life, certain things you'll see when you believe marriage is the answer for you. First of all, when you believe marriage is your answer, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. You will compromise more than you should. You'll find yourself compromising more than you should compromise. Jacob. Okay, so in verse 17, she was drop dead gorgeous. I got to have her. She's the solution to all my problems. Verse 18, Jacob was in love with Rachel. He sees her. Next verse, he's in love with her. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel, is what he says to his uncle. I'll work 7 years for you. I'll be your slave for 7 years if you give me Rachel. How do you respond to that verse? What's your opinion on that verse? There's two kinds of ways that we sometimes interpret this, react to this verse. The first reaction, because we're 21st century kind of people, is this is highly offensive. Okay? This is highly offensive. That I can just go to someone and say, hey, I'll get your mail and get you a cup of coffee and you give me your daughter. And we make some kind of arrangement together. So that's, treating her like she's a commodity. Well, I know it does sound like that, but it's not that way. In the Old Testament, this was common. And in the Old Testament, it was very common. This was the way you did it, was that to get a bride, you would have to make some kind of payment. Okay, so you would give money. Jacob had no money. You would give livestock. Jacob had no livestock. Or you would give service. And you would become like a servant for that person. So this is actually not offensive at all. This was the way things was done. And typically, if you were going to give service, the standard going rate, the market price, was 2 years. So I would go to the dad and I would say, I'll work for you for 2 years in return for your daughter. Jacob offered 7. So then the other reaction that we might have is, isn't that so romantic? Isn't that so sweet? I'll give 7 years for this girl. Is it romantic? Or is it insane? It's insane. The going rate was 2 years. You offered 7. This is a negotiation. It's the Middle East. Everything is negotiation. You got to negotiate. Who starts off negotiating at 3.5 times the fair market value? That's what Jacob did. I'll give you 7 for her. Why, Jacob? Why you offered 7? You love her? You want her to be with you quicker. You say, I want her in a year. And then you negotiate a little back and forth. You know how it is. He started off with 7 right off the bat. Read between the lines. What is Jacob saying right now? What is Jacob saying? Single people, what is Jacob saying? I'll do anything. I'll do anything to get her. But you said you guys are going to be pure. What happened? Well, I wanted to be pure, but he, started stuff. And, I thought, well, maybe if I just kind of compromised a little bit, then, like if I gave him my body, he'd give me his heart. Why? Or, he's a jerk, and he's clearly a jerk, and his own mama thinks he's a jerk, but he'll probably change with time. It's okay. It's okay. I don't want to lose him. Or she's not really, she's into church and he's not really into church, and he's got a good heart, and I'm getting older, and all my friends are getting married, and I hate their guts, and I just gotta compromise. Why? Because I gotta have her. I can't lose her. But it's not good. No, but I can't lose it. Compromise. When marriage is your answer, you not only compromise, because you compromise, you also become very demanding. When you believe marriage is the answer to all your problems in life. Jacob works his 7 years, finishes his 7 years, then he goes to his uncle and says, in verse 21, then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to lie with her. Now again, the translators of the Bible were being very tame in the way they translated this verse. This is a very offensive statement and a very crude statement that Jacob is making. It's not in a romantic, loving kind of a way. He's basically saying, I did my job, now it's time for her to do her job. We'll just leave it at that. He's saying, I paid my price, now give me my bride, and she's going to do what she's got to do. Very crude, very offensive kind of a statement. When marriage is your answer, something happens. Marriage turns from a covenant into a contract. You know what's the difference? You know what's the difference between a marriage covenant versus a marriage contract? Marriage is supposed to be a covenant. Covenant means a promise. Means, here I am, there's my wife, I say, I give myself to you entirely, for life. For rich or poor, better, worse, sick, health, whatever, I sacrifice for you, I give myself to you, I'm all yours. That's a covenant. What's a contract? A contract is, I'll do A, you better do B. I'll do this, you better do that. And if I did and you didn't, watch out. Marriage as a contract ends up turning into, what can I get out of this? Marriage as a covenant is, what can I put into this? is the picture that I've drawn for you guys before. I've said it to you before. I say it to every couple that comes to me for premarital counseling. I'll say it till the day I die. Marriage is like a box. And the right way, let's do the wrong way first. The wrong way of marriage is like a box. The contract way is that you have two parties coming in saying, I want to get married so I can have, satisfaction. The other one says, I want to have, security. I want camaraderie. I want whatever. Like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Now, if you have the biggest box in the whole wide world, and it's full of stuff, and every single day, I pull out and you pull out, and I pull out and you pull out, what's going to happen? It's just a matter of time before it happens. The box becomes empty. There ain't no box in the world that won't become empty. That's marriage as a contract. You owe me this, I want to take this. Marriage is a covenant, is the biblical way. It's not what I can take out, it's what can I put in. Is that I come in saying, not what I'm coming to take out of marriage, but what I'm coming to put in. I'm coming to give you love. I'm coming to give you companionship. I'm coming to give you support. I'm coming to give you, and each one is putting and putting and putting. Now let's flip the analogy. Now the box is not full. The box starts off empty, starts off at zero. What happens over time if I keep on putting in this empty box, and so do you, and so do you, and so do you, and so do you? What's going to happen over time? Eventually the box will overflow. That's how marriage is supposed to be. Marriage is supposed to be a covenant. It's not about what you're coming to take out, it's what you're coming to put in. I say something funny. I'm not trying to be funny, but I say it. Okay, everyone laughs and thinks it's funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Marriage is like a funeral. It is, and I say it at people's weddings. I say, today we're celebrating this wedding, but we're really celebrating their funeral. And everyone laughs, and haha, I'm not joking, I'm serious. It is. Because single people, if you ain't ready to die, you ain't ready to get married. Because marriage is not more about what I want for myself, it's about what I'm coming to put in. That wasn't Jacob. Jacob was saying, she's beautiful, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I'm going to get it for me. When you start focusing on what I'm trying to get, and marriage is a contract, you hit a dangerous phase. Married people, be careful of this phase. And it's the phase where, well, I'm not getting what I want. Well, neither is she now. And we start to withhold things that we know they want, and it becomes this like tug of war. Like, who's going to blink first? Oh, she's not giving me this? Well, I'm not going to give her that. Oh, he's not giving me that? Well, you see when next time he gets that is. That's what happens. And it becomes a very negative cycle. If you're not ready to die, you're not ready to get married. Become very demanding. The other thing that is inevitable, when you believe marriage is the answer to all your problems, you will 100% of the time end up dissatisfied. Always, every single time. If you banking on marriage to solve all your problems, I guarantee you, you will never find satisfaction in life. Because no one can solve all your problems. Your spouse ain't going to solve it. No one other than God can. Jacob came into this situation, like I said, he was empty, dissatisfied, lonely. He said, I get Rachel, she solves all my problems. He works 7 hard years. He does his end of the contract. Now he says, it's time for me to get mine. Give me the girl. Laban, the uncle, realized, oh, wait a minute, I got a problem here. If I marry Rachel off, the problem is going to be Leah. She's older. The custom is, can't marry the younger without marrying the older. So Laban comes up with a brilliant idea. Wedding feasts back in the day were really feasts, like really feasts. They were over the course of 7 days, and there was a very high level of intoxication. And Laban made sure that Jacob got liquored up and that he was so tanked that he could pull a fast one on him. What Laban does, he takes his older daughter Leah and he puts a veil over her. 2 veils, give her 3 just to be on the safe side. because she had weak eyes. Jacob gets liquored up. Jacob goes into the bridal chamber waiting for his bride. Laban looks to the left, to the right, no one's looking. Shh. Sends Leah on in and says, take care of business. Consummate the marriage. Jacob is so liquored up, apparently he can't tell the difference between Leah and Rachel, which you can't tell the difference. And look what happens. Genesis 29, verse 23. But when evening came, Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. When morning came, there was Leah! Exclamation mark. There was Leah! So Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? What it must have been like for Jacob to wake up that morning. One can only imagine that he woke up, he made it all night with Leah, and he woke up and said, it's Leah! How did this happen? 7 years of his life was to get to this moment where he'd have Rachel right there, and one shot like that. He flips out, and rightly so. He flips out. He says, what have you done to me? You tricked me, you deceived me. I promise you, if you think marriage is your answer, you're going to end up just like Jacob. Hopefully not literally, okay? Not literally what happened to Jacob. But if you think marriage is the answer to all your problems, you're going to go to bed one night thinking you slept with Rachel, you're going to wake up with Leah. I'm telling you. You're going to go to bed one night thinking that it's Rachel who's with you for life. You wake up in the morning and realize Rachel ain't Rachel, it's Leah. The interesting thing about what Jacob did is Leah actually did the exact same thing. Jacob was saying, I think I'm getting this, and this is going to solve all my problems. Well, he actually didn't get that, and none of his problems were solved. The problems were just beginning for Mr. Jacob. But Leah was actually doing a very similar thing. Why would Leah go through all this? Like, why would Leah be like a pawn in this little situation? Go to bed willingly with a guy she knows doesn't like her and hates her guts and wants her sister. Why would Leah go through with this so willingly, and why would she do it? Why? Same thing as Jacob. She was lonely. She was empty. Said, hey, maybe this will solve all my problems. If I just deceive him, like once I'm in there next to him, it'll be okay. How I get in there doesn't really matter. Once I'm in there, it'll kind of be okay. It'll work itself out. Like, I'm sure, listen to this one. I'm sure with time he'll change. Right? I'm sure with time he'll change. So Leah willingly deceived him, went into him, and unfortunately for her, didn't work out the way she wanted. Jacob never loved her. Look, I'll show you some sad verses, and I hope these verses, I hope you realize the sadness of them, and we realize what it is that caused these sadness verses. Look what it says in verse 31. It says, when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved. Why? Because Jacob woke up and flipped out that she was there. He hated her guts. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. Listen to this. Surely my husband will love me now. Isn't that sad? Like, I'll have a kid. I'm sure he'll love me now. I'm sure if we just have a kid, I'm sure if I just do this, or I'm sure if I get this job, she'll love me. I'm sure if I just solve this and buy her this, then she'll love me. I'm sure he'll love me now. Keeps going. She conceived again. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too. So she named him Simeon. Still didn't love her. Why do we know? Because look, and again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. So he was named Levi. You feel for this girl? Surely if I give him children, he'll love me. Surely, if I make more money for her, she'll love me. Surely, if I can break this habit, then she'll love me. If I can stop this annoying behavior, then he'll love me. Never, never. Jacob never loved Leah. And she lived her whole life trying to get the love of a man that never wanted to be with her. Now, I told you in the beginning, this is a very twisted story, okay? And we're going to skip a lot of the Rachel parts just because it's too much for one time, okay? We haven't even entered the other sister getting involved in the marriage and all the stuff that comes with that. What's missing from this picture? From everything that we've seen with Jacob and Rachel and Leah. What's missing? God is missing, right? Where's God in this story? Like, where's Jacob, father of nations? Where's prayer? Where's like seeking God's counsel? Where's like faith that God is going to provide? Where's any of God in this? He's nowhere. And that's why it's twisted. This is what happens to all, listen very carefully to this, because I'm saying every word carefully. This happens to all human relationships that don't have God. All human relationships that don't have God. If God is not in it, it's just a matter of time. It may last for a little. It may be very, very nice. It may be fun and exciting and romantic and whatever, but it's just a matter of time. Y'all remember a series I did way back in the day, all right, which for whatever reason ended up, anytime I meet anyone from anywhere who's ever heard any sermon of mine, they've heard the same sermons series is the number one that everyone listens to, which is on the subject of dating. All right, I gave a talk about a series about dating, and people think that's all I talk about is dating, okay? One of the things that I said in that series, and I stand by my statement, I'll stand till the day I go 6 feet under, is that if you think that the answer to your problems is finding Mr. Right or Miss Right, and you think that that's the one who's going to make you happy, and that's the one who's going to provide your satisfaction, and your whole life is to seek that one, I got news for you. Jesus is the one, and your spouse is the two. And if this ain't your mental model that you're operating under, if you're not operating with this as your framework, you're going to get messed up. Because too many people think that the spouse is number one. And what is it called when you take anyone or anything and make that number one in your life? There's a biblical word for that. It's all throughout the Old Testament. It's called what? Idolatry. And many of us make an idol out of marriage. Gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta. And the whole life is consumed by gotta find the one, gotta find the one, gotta find the one. Bible says, no idolatry. No gods before me. If I'm not your one, you're an idol worshiper. Something's your idol. And a lot of us, we make marriage an idol. Jesus said in the Bible that the greatest commandment is that you love God, all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Don't worry about all these other things. They shall be added unto you. I'm convinced that a marriage where God is not the center of the marriage and God is not number one, ultimately, again, maybe not in the short term, but ultimately has no chance. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying. I'm not saying a marriage of two Christians. I'm not saying Christians are church people. Because there's a lot of church people and a lot of Christians where God isn't number one. So I'm not saying just find a boy from the church or a girl from the church and everything will be fine. I'm saying where God is number one for him and for her. And if God isn't the master of him and God isn't the master of her, it's just a matter of time before the box becomes empty. You get messed up. Philippians 4:19 says, and my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. The majority of marriage problems is because people are looking to their spouse to provide a need that only God can provide. Your spouse is not supposed to provide all your needs. Your spouse is supposed to be the icing on the cake. And too many of us, we're eating icing and wondering why our stomach is sick. God is supposed to be the cake and your spouse is just supposed to be the icing. Jesus said it this way too in John 4:14. Whoever drinks of this water that I shall give him will never thirst, but the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. Bottom line, if Jesus is not the number one, the relationship won't work. Let's fast forward to the end of the story with Leah. Leah ends up having 3 kids, and every single time she's thinking, he'll love me if I have another son. He'll love me if I have another son. And with every another passing son, Jacob just wanted Rachel that much more. Finally, it comes time for Leah to bear her 4th child, but this time she takes a different attitude towards the 4th. Look what it says. Verse 35. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah, then she stopped having children. What happened with the 4th child? I don't know what triggered it. I don't know where it came from, but Leah realized who's number one. And she realized that this boy's never going to love me. And I got to stop seeking it from this boy. And I got to stop seeking comfort, consolation, and everything, all my needs met from this boy. This boy's a foolish boy. This boy doesn't know what he wants. Jacob, as yet, had not made God like the centerpiece of his life. And she realized, you know what? I'm going to praise the Lord. Who was born from her then? Judah. Who's Judah? Ancestor of Christ. Christ came from the line of Judah. Most people don't realize this. Christ did not come from Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel. But Christ came from the line of Judah, who came from Leah. Once again, proving that God is an expert, and no matter what the circumstances may be, or what the mistakes made have been, or no matter how bad things may seem, he always can bring exponentially good things out of even the worst situation. I would say this marriage between Jacob and Leah was about as dysfunctional a marriage as could possibly exist. You got the sister thing, you got the work thing, throw the cousins on top of that. Like, this was about as dysfunctional a situation as could possibly exist. Your marriage may be messed up, but it can't be this messed up. But look what God was able to do from this. Able to bring forth the Messiah, the promised one, from this. Action items. Married people, single people. Married people. You go home today. You close the door to your room with your spouse inside it, hopefully, okay? You take your spouse inside your room, you close the door. You hold each other's hands. You pray. You say, God, you're the master of my life. You're the master of this person's life. You're the master of this house. We don't care about money. We don't care about houses. We don't care about anything. We care about you. All the stuff in the past, we may have made mistakes. I may have been rude. I may have been arrogant. I may never want to say I'm sorry. I got problems. She's got problems. He's got problems. We got problems. God, today, we stand in front of you. You're number one. You do that today. And you watch the blessing descend upon your house. You watch the the blessing descend upon your house. When 2 people say, God, you're number one, you just get out of the way and watch what God will do. Single people, what do? You go to your room by yourself. Don't take anyone with you. You close that door. You stand in front of God. You say the same thing. God, you're number one. I'm not looking for money. I'm not looking for cute eyes. I'm not looking for a good family. I'm not expecting that anyone is going to solve all my problems except you. I trust you. I love you. I praise you no matter what I don't have or what I do have. You're number one. And you just wait and see. God, like a magnet, will bring to you Another person, in the fullness of time, in due season, who's got that same vision, you put those two magnets together, and you rip through life. Two people seeking God as their number one in life. There is nothing greater in the universe than that. Nothing greater. That's why the devil wants to stop it. Two people, a man and a woman, side by side, engagé with one another, saying, God, you're number one. Nothing will stop us from getting you. I promise you, there's nothing more powerful in the universe than that. And my prayer is that all of us, whether married or single, would get to experience that. Let's stand for a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen.